How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your December horoscope for Capricorn. I keep forgetting to mention this in my other horoscopes, so I might as well say it now. You basically should watch these from both your sun and your rising. I kind of record and write all of this from your rising sign, and I do think that reading horoscopes from your rising sign is going to be a little bit more effective and a little bit more on point. However, I always watch, when I'm watching horoscopes, whatever, sun and rising, so I would definitely recommend watching both of them. I'm just saying that now because I know there's been some confusion. So let's get into it, I guess. To kind of go over everything before we really go into detail of all the dates, I'd just like to say I think this month is really going to be bringing out a lot that you guys weren't necessarily aware of, that you weren't necessarily ready for. However, I really think that this month is going to give you guys an opportunity to see things for a much clearer truth, for a much bigger thing than what it is. You guys have a lot going on with your guys' first house in itself this month too, but you also have a lot going on in your 12th house. The 12th house is of, unacknowledged and repressed parts of yourself. It is, hidden enemies. It is secrets. And I do think that a lot of this 12th house stuff, along with your 3rd house stuff, I think a lot of stuff is just going to become very prevalent. A lot of stuff is going to become very present. And when I say that, I mean things you weren't necessarily expecting, different perspectives and different opinions that you weren't necessarily ready for. So this isn't like a doom scope or anything like that. However, I do think that this month is going to kind of be like, whoa, because it is your birthday month. You do have your solar return if it's your, if you're a Capricorn sun, or you do have the sun going through your first house if you're a Capricorn rising. So there is going to be a lot prevalent for you guys just to begin with that. However, before, even the sun goes into Capricorn, there's so much more happening. So let's kind of dive into it. On December 1st, we have Mercury retrograding back into Scorpio to kick off the month. And so with Mercury being retrograde in Sagittarius, where, your 12th house is unacknowledged, repressed parts of your stuff, of yourself, things that you didn't necessarily realize, things that you don't always see, has to do with dreams, has to do with asylums, and, things. The 12th house is just a crazy place. As Mercury's been retrograde right there, it's been kind of like, whoa, okay, what's coming up that you didn't see? What's coming, to your awareness that you weren't necessarily ready for, that you weren't expecting? As Mercury then retrogrades back into Scorpio, back into your 11th house, this is when it's going to be about, okay, realizing what the issue is, especially because Mercury in Sagittarius can become very unclear. However, Mercury in Scorpio is very sharp, very clear, sees it, it's very piercing. And as this goes into your 11th house, I think this is going to a lot to do with your friends and who you associate with. I think this is also going to do a lot with, where you're kind of branching yourself out to, who you're really taking it, who you're really being with, I guess is the best way to put it. As Mercury goes direct, or not direct, but goes back into Scorpio retrograde, I think this is when you're going to start to really, after you took all this new information in, things were realized, I think this is where you're going to go, okay, now I know where to really surround myself with, who to surround myself with, being clear about where you want to put your energy into and whose energy you want to be given to you as well. So that's going to be a big deal. Mars is also going to be squaring the sun at 9 degrees on December 1st in Pisces and Sagittarius. So as the sun's in your guys' 12th house, the 12th house is kind of like in the eastern horizon, or actually be over here for you guys, I think. Yeah, in the eastern horizon, when the sun comes up, the sun's now in the sky, people are waking up, it's very blinding, it's hard to see. When you have the sun in the 12th house right there, it's like all of that energy is being kind of like the light, it's being focused. It's like there's light in a place that was dark. And so as you guys experience that and you guys have more things becoming more and more aware that are being more present, as Mars is in Pisces in your guys' 3rd house, where we're talking about your communication, we're talking about thinking, we're talking about writing, we're talking about your siblings, we're talking about your environment, your neighbors and stuff like that. It also has a lot to do with, how you kind of apply yourself, where you really apply yourself. The 1st house is who you are, the 2nd house is what you have, 3rd house is how you use it. So while Mars is in your 3rd house and it's in Pisces, Mars in Pisces isn't always clear. Mars in Pisces is very much trusting its intuition, trusting its gut, being able to call the shots in that moment and not thinking too far about the future and not thinking too much in the past. And so as Mars is going through this area and it's squaring the sun, I think this is where it's going to become, okay, what's my next step now? How do I really utilize, everything that I've got, everything that, is starting to become aware? How do I really channel this energy in the right direction? And so with that Sun-Mars square that's still happening on December 1st, I think this is going to be a big time where you guys kind of shift your gears and really start to apply yourself in a new and different fashion. On December 1st as well, I know we're still talking about the 1st, we also have the Venus and Uranus opposition at 29 degrees of Aries and Libra. So as Uranus is dipped back into your 4th house of your family life, of your home life, of your private life, of your parents, Uranus is kicking things back into gear. Uranus is bringing a whole bunch of craziness to it. Venus is in Libra in your 10th house, where Venus is, she's now direct, she's now strong, she's dignified, and she's in your 10th house of your career, of your public vocation, of, just kind of the public eye and how things manifest. And Venus is really wanting to bring a lot of good things. And Uranus is in your 4th house, where it's not necessarily bad, but it's definitely chaotic. It's not always good. But with Venus being in your 10th house in Libra, where she's dignified and she's moving forward and she's strong, as she opposes Uranus, I think this is going to be a big time to really go, okay, where do I need to value the way that I want things to look, the way that I want things to operate, versus where do you need to get yourself not only, ungrounded, it's kind of like getting yourself out of your comfort zone and putting the value in your, I don't even want to say career, because not all the time 10th house has to do with career, but most of the time with career, public vocation, the public eye, how things generally manifest, could be doing something with your boss as well. As Venus is in Libra, she's really wanting to place the value in this spot. So I think it's time to really put the value there and not so much where you want to be grounded, where you think you should be centered. This is going to be a big time to get out of your comfort zone and really, do your best to make everything as, valuable as possible, as, the way that you really want it is a good way to put it. Then moving on to December 2nd, we have Venus entering Scorpio, where, Venus has been retrograde in Scorpio in your 11th house, and she went retrograde and direct into your 10th house. This is really about going, okay, if this is the value that I want to put on my life, if this is the value that I want to create, that I want to manifest into my life, who do I need to associate with and where do I need to apply this? Venus retrograde in Scorpio could have made you feel like, who are my friends? Who am I associating with? Where am I putting my value in terms of connection and relation to others? And how does that look? Because with Venus and Scorpio being so, rigid and raw and detailed, it's getting really raw and really clear and very precise with the people that you associate with and why you associate with them. And as Venus is all about putting in this value, Venus is wanting to emphasize and beautify it's kind of like hanging out with your goth friends more than, your regular friends or something like that. But as Venus starts to move into Scorpio, and she's still in shadow, she will leave shadow eventually, but she's direct now and she's moving forward. This is going to be a big time about going, who are you associating with and where are you placing that value in the people that you're connecting to? And really realizing that. As Venus has been retrograde, you've been learning about that. You've been going, okay, who do I value? Who do I really trust? Who am I putting my all into? And as Venus is direct now, it's about putting that action in. It's about putting the pedal to the metal in a sense. Then couple days later, not too much is happening in between then, on December 7th, we have Mars conjuncting Neptune, where Neptune's been in your 3rd house, where Neptune in your 3rd house is just a weird place anyway, especially transiting wise, because the 3rd house is, it's a cadent house, it's, it doesn't have the whole much going for it. However, Neptune puts a blur, puts a fog into things like, who your neighbors are, your siblings, your how you write, how you talk, what you're talking about, what your mindset is, and really how you do things. As Mars conjuncts Neptune, this is when it's going to be very clear to take that action. This is going to be when things are very clear on how they really look. This is kind of cutting away, the duality and, not being so back and forth and picking a side. This is about being clear on that intuition on where you need to act, where you need to move forward with, and it's going to all kind of come naturally, but it is going to become very clear in your mindset. It's going to become very clear in your actions. It's going to become very clear in the way that you speak and the way that you kind of go about things in that way. That's a big deal. On December 7th as well, we do have the moon, click this chart, we do have the new moon in Sagittarius. So you've had Jupiter's now in your 12th house, Mercury retrograded in your 12th house. Now we have a new moon in your 12th house where the sun is at. A lot of 12th house activities of, repressed and acknowledged parts of yourself becoming more aware. Things that were in your subconscious definitely coming out more alive, questioning what you believe and why you believe it. This new moon is about really cleaning and clearing that out and kind of like, you know, clearing out your palate and getting ready for the next meal that you have. Because that meal is Jupiter and he's coming. However, this new moon is really cleaning out that palette, really helping you, now that things are aware that you weren't really expecting, that you weren't ready for, now you can really go, okay, now this is the time to clean out my beliefs, my subconscious, and really start, you know, questioning that. Really start going, what do I believe? What do I need to acknowledge that I've been repressing? And where do you need to find the faith? Where do you need to find the hope? Where do you need to find the good things? Because this is Jupiter's sign, and Jupiter's here. He's knocking on your door, and I think this is going to be a big time to really bring up a lot of the more passionate spiritual beliefs that you guys all have that you sometimes repress down. Also, on the 7th, we have Mercury going direct. And as Mercury goes direct in Scorpio, this is, you know, now that you're clear about who to associate yourself with, you know, how to communicate, how to get the message across the board. Now that Mercury's direct, it's about communicating that message, getting clear on it, focusing in on that vision. Like, you know, I've been making in the other videos, the reference I've been making is Aries is the Marine that's just going to go kill everybody or whatever. Like the idea of Mars being, you know, military and whatnot. Scorpio's more of the sniper. Mercury direct in Scorpio is kind of like you've had this shot and you've just been waiting for the moment. Mercury in Scorpio direct is like you've got the shot, you've got the clearance, go for it. Like, you know what you see, you know that this is the one moment, you got to trust that moment, you got to pull the trigger. That is that moment. And this is around the 11th house of friends, of community, of who you associate yourself with. This also has to do with philanthropy and humanitarian things. So as Mercury goes direct, I think this is when things are going to become very clear in that area. Moving forward, on December 9th, we do have Chiron going direct, and that's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is something to make notice of as it is in your 3rd house. Yeah, not really the biggest deal for you. I just got done with the Pisces video, so that was a bigger deal for Pisces. Then on a couple days later, on December 12th, we have Mercury going back into Sagittarius. So Mercury's still in shadow, Mercury's now back in his detriment. Yeah, you got the shot, you're clear, but now it's like, what does moving forward look like? Now it's about taking that, you know, now that you pulled the trigger, you're ready to go. Now it's about traveling on that path. And this is stuff that you've been over before, but now it's about doing it with a better sense of vision, doing it with more clarity, doing it with a more sense of understanding why you're doing it. So as Mercury goes back into your 12th house, this is going to bring up stuff that you've repressed. This is going to bring up stuff you weren't really, you know, realizing. This is going to bring up stuff that you weren't prepared to see. So as Mercury goes through there, this is going to be a big time to know what path that you're on and realize that things are going to change. Things are going to come up that you didn't always see, but you still have to believe at the end of the trail. You have to believe at where this is going in the long run. So then a couple days later, on December 17th, we do have Venus leaving shadow. So again, Venus has been retrograde for quite some time in Scorpio, and now that she's leaving shadow, she's going through new territory, but she's a lot stronger now. She's not as scared. She got pumped up. She got a pep talk, and now she's traveling through it. And the reference I've been making is kind of like, you know, Venus and Scorpio is kind of like, you know, when you're in the forest and you see a bear or something like that, and it's like, you know, roaring at you, you don't sit there and be terrified. You freak out and you scream and you throw your hands up in the air and you hope that that thing runs away, even though you know that you're terrified. That's kind of Venus and Scorpio and the way that she's kind of going through the rest of Scorpio. She's strong and she's resilient and she can handle it. She's just done with the bullshit and she's starting to move forward. She's really placing all of her value in getting to the end and getting to outside of the Scorpio realm and going to Sagittarius. She wants to meet up with Jupiter. She wants to be taken into Jupiter's arms in Sagittarius later on in January. But as she moves direct, this is about just fucking go for it. Just fucking go. Know who you're connecting yourself with. Know what you're putting your emotions into. Know what you're really holding on to, and realize what you've let go of and what no longer serves you. Whew. Okay. So then on December 20th, Venus is also trining Neptune. So Neptune's in your third house. Neptune's making, you know, your actions and also a little bit more of your speaking and verbiage a little bit more intuitive, more of a spiritual thing. And so as Venus trines Neptune, the only reason I put that in is because I think that's going to be a really, even though it's going to make a lot of fog, I think it's going to be more of an intuitively clear next step forward with where Venus is going in Scorpio. It's kind of like Venus isn't afraid to go through Scorpio anymore, so she's charging, and now she's realizing, oh, I had nothing to be scared about. You know, Venus is trining Neptune. It's kind of like, oh, well, the fog's here, so I can't really see anything anyway, so nothing can really scare me if I can't see it. That's going to be a big thing. But then, I mean, the next couple days from December 20th to the 22nd, we're like that. So that's on the 20th. The next day on the 21st, we have Mercury conjuncting Jupiter at 9 degrees. So this is Mercury in Sag where, you know, he was clear about his vision, but he still doesn't really, it's like, you know, he has the map of where he needs to go on the trail, and he's in a foreign land. And it's kind of like he knows where he wants to go, but as he's going through it, you know, he can't talk to the native people. He doesn't speak the native language. So he's like, I don't know what's going on. I could be lost. Who knows? But as Mercury conjuncts Jupiter in Sag in your 12th house, this is really good news coming from those repressed parts and unacknowledged parts. It's kind of like, yeah, you trusted yourself, you trusted the path, you're going on it. Now we're getting some good news. Now we're getting some good, you know, messages. Now things are really starting to come in a very positive way. As long as you just keep trusting that path and keep going with, I don't want to say a blind faith, but with faith. That's going to be cool as fuck. I'm saying fuck a lot in this video. Then on December 22nd, we have the sun going into Capricorn. Your solar return starts, or the sun enters your first house. We have the full moon in Cancer getting kicked off immediately. And we have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction beginning. This is going to be real as shit. As we have the sun going into Capricorn, happy birthday, whoop-de-doo. This is when you're going to feel more of yourself and be like, okay, now I'm stepping into my groove. Now I'm like starting to feel more of myself, get grounded, get some solid foundation and some framework going around, you know, reconstructing yourself in a sense, because that's the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. But as the sun goes into Capricorn and the moon goes into Cancer in your 7th house, what do you need from other people? Where do you really need to be nourished with the relationships in your life? And where can you really learn to trust these people that are in your life? This is going to require a lot of trust. This is going to require a lot of vulnerability that you guys probably aren't ready for. But as we have this Mercury-Jupiter conjunction in Sag, like right before it, you've got to be willing to go on this path even though you don't know what it's going to look like. And as the sun goes into Capricorn, we have the full moon in Cancer. This is really realizing if you want to have a better framework and you want to have a better sense of foundation and solidity in yourself, you've got to learn to be open and vulnerable and trust the people around you. You can't be so, and you know, you're going to want to be more protective. You're going to want to be more just emotional with them. But like, this is a time to be vulnerable and open and trust and just let it out. As the Saturn-Pluto conjunction starts too, this is within a 10-degree orb, but this is going to be that time where you realize that there's a deeper change inside of you that's starting to happen, and it's starting then. And it's only going to keep progressing as we move further into 2019 and 2020. But there's going to be a deep, very real change going on with you guys, and you're going to very much feel it, and it's just going to be not the tip of the iceberg, but it's like the salads before the dinner. And this, I'm not saying, you know, your whole world's going to come collapsing, but this is going to be very raw and deep, and you're going to realize where you need to reframe and restructure yourself in a way bigger way than you might have thought. I'm not saying this is a bad thing at all, but it is going to be very much big and very present. So take it on, you know, be courageous about it. Once Mars goes into Aries later on, like on January 1st, you're going to feel ready for it. But before we go into that, last couple days of December, Mercury leaves shadow and it squares Neptune. So again, Mercury's going to be, you know, out of shadow. He's still going to be on, he just left Jupiter. Now he's out of shadow. Now he's on his own. And so as he goes through Sag and he squares Neptune again, you're going to have that uncertainty. You're going to have that unclarity. But again, you have to remember the faith and everything that you instilled when Mercury conjuncted Jupiter and Sag. You've got to be remembering of that, and you've got to trust and have faith in the process. So as that Mercury-Neptune square happens, don't be afraid. Don't get too lost and caught up. Take things one step at a time. Then on the 29th, we have Mars conjuncting Chiron. This is that healing of like, okay, I understand that this is out of my comfort zone, but I understand how to trust my intuition when it comes to taking the next step. That's going to be a big healing thing. And then we have January 1st, we have the Sun-Saturn conjunction, Mars goes into Aries, and boom, 2019's off to the races. This month is going to be very much real as shit for you guys. And it's not going to be like a, oh my God, your whole world comes collapsing down. But I think you guys are going to have such a deep, profound effect this month. And there's going to be so much that you realize, so much that really settles in, that you've got to be willing to have that faith and have that belief and open yourself up to levels that you've never opened up before. And once you take on that initiative, I think you're going to be flying forward. However, it is going to be a long process of very deep change. Things that, it's not even about you. It's about change in general. So go through it with confidence. You guys are Capricorns. You don't give a fuck. You can handle anything because you're, ruthless and you got, business mentality. And I'm just kind of kidding about that. But you guys got it this month. Don't be scared about it, but really open up, because this month is going to force you to do it. So stop letting yourself, or stop, making yourself not be able to open up. You don't have to be so rigid all the time. This month's going to force it for you. So take that into consideration and move ahead. Just trust this process, and you guys got it. So thank you guys so much for watching this and liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing. And I'll be seeing you guys for next month's horoscope.